All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. You know, when we hear the name Tom Holland, we almost automatically picture the untouchable, high-flying Spider-Man. But today, we're pulling back the curtain. We're going to look at the real person behind the mask. We're exploring the journey of a vulnerable 27-year-old, navigating the exact same modern struggles that, honestly, so many of us face. We're talking about a deep obsession with social media, the really subtle traps of everyday drinking culture, and the intense, often totally overwhelming pressure of trying to find genuine authenticity in a noisy world.
He recently opened up and admitted, I just felt like I was so addicted to this kind of false version of my life. And you can see how it happened. While filming that incredibly taxing psychological thriller, The Crowded Room, over in New York, Tom just hit a wall of absolute exhaustion. He describes coming off set, sitting down in his chair, and just endlessly doom-scrolling on his phone. In that moment of sheer fatigue, it hit him. He realized he had become dangerously obsessed with what people thought of him, and he was hopelessly addicted to maintaining this completely false, highly curated public version of his life.
So that brings us to Section 1, the illusion of fame, and the tricky relationship between mental health and the media. This moment really marks the beginning of a profound psychological descent for Tom. It shows exactly how the crushing pressure of Hollywood clashed directly with his basic need to set some healthy personal boundaries. So Tom proactively decides to announce a break from Instagram to protect his mental health. His goal was to use his massive platform as an olive branch, to normalize and actually celebrate the act of asking for help. But the media, they totally spun the narrative. The headlines started claiming he was having a nervous breakdown in New York. They took this really positive, proactive step and painted it in this dark, negative light, which completely ruined his attempt to show that stepping back for your mental health is something you should be proud of.
Moving on, we dive into Section 2, the path to sobriety, which was a hidden battle he was fighting entirely behind the scenes. The thing about this kind of hidden battle is that it can sneak up on literally anyone. Initially, Tom was just using alcohol to, survive social events and feel comfortable networking. But after a particularly boozy Christmas holiday, he noticed a terrifying shift. He was waking up, obsessively checking the clock, just waiting for the quote-unquote acceptable time to have his next drink. Desperate for answers for his constant exhaustion, he bought an Oura ring to track his health. And man, the data was a massive wake-up call. It revealed that even though he was working these grueling 14-hour days and eating super healthy, his daily drinking habit was completely destroying sleep. He realized he had a real addiction. So he decides to quit, but the timeline to get sober was absolutely grueling. It started with this brutal dry January where he found himself once again obsessively watching the clock. And because it was so hard and almost to prove to himself that he didn't have a problem, he extended the ban into February. During that time, he faced this intense social paralysis. He felt physically unable to even step foot in a pub. But he just kept pushing. And finally, by his birthday on June 1st, a turning point arrived. He achieved total mental clarity. By swapping out beer for healthy electrolyte drinks, he suddenly felt the healthiest he had ever been. And looking at where he is now, a year and a half later, he's achieved total freedom from the urge to drink. It's a real game changer. Through all of this, Tom's mindset became, I'll give it 100% or I'll give it nothing. But you've got to ask yourself, where does the strength to push through these intense personal crucibles actually come from? For Tom, it didn't come from some fancy Hollywood publicist or a life coach. It stems directly from the incredible work ethic and resilience modeled for him by his father. Which leads us to Section 3, a father's resilience, and how you go about building that kind of unbreakable mental strength. Growing up, Tom would occasionally watch his dad just completely bomb on stage during a stand-up comedy gig. But instead of letting it crush him, his dad would just brush the failure right off his shoulder and move on to the next gig with absolute confidence. That specific mindset, that resilience, directly taught Tom how to effortlessly shrug off the incredibly harsh critical reviews that initially plagued his own passion project, The Crowded Room. Let's look a little deeper at how his parents built this environment. They provided this incredibly safe foundation by actively shielding their kids from the crazy highs and lows of the entertainment industry. Instead of dragging them to flashy red carpet events, they did simple, grounded things, like they'd go to the local park and play golf goals, literally just firing golf balls into a metal net for 10 pence a shot. So simple, right? But it created such a safe, deeply connected family foundation that it inspired Tom's ultimate dream in life, to one day be able to put his work to bed completely, step away, and be a fully present father himself. And that brings us to our final section, finding the authentic life, and how he's actively rejecting the Hollywood machine. To stay grounded these days, he keeps his romantic life completely and fiercely private, far away from the cameras.
And instead of chasing VIP clubs, you're going to find him hanging out with his day one mates at the local pub quizzes in Kingston. He even chooses to play golf, specifically because, in his own words, the sport is violently humbling. It doesn't care how famous or successful you are, it will just batter you. To top it all off, he actually has a strict rule to actively avoid all unnecessary red carpets and Hollywood parties whenever he isn't directly promoting a film. But perhaps the absolute best metaphor for his ongoing quest for true presence and humility is a story that you are definitely not going to find on his Instagram. It's the orca encounter. This was a completely undocumented, wild experience swimming with an apex predator in the waters of Mexico. Picture this. They're 30 miles off the coast when his security guard, Jack, just impulsively jumps into the dark blue ocean. So naturally, Tom and his brother grab some flippers and follow him in. Once they're in the water, this massive apex predator, a wild orca, appears out of nowhere and is just hovering motionless, 10 meters below them, staring right at them. In that terrifying scenario, Tom didn't panic. Instead, he experienced this massive, ego-stripping moment of total surrender to Mother Nature. It was this profoundly leveling moment of absolute peace, presence, and humility. In fact, it left him completely speechless for 3 solid hours afterward. Which brings us to our final takeaway and a direct challenge for you. Based on this incredible journey we've just unpacked in this explainer, how will you quiet the noise and find your own authentic life? I mean, let Tom's story be the inspiration here. Maybe it's time to finally put down the phone, stop obsessing over public perception, proudly ask for help without an ounce of shame, and start building a life that is truly 100% yours.